A flight attendant confiscates a teenager's inhaler. Calling it fake, then discovers the girl's father controls her entire career. Albuterol canister, flight attendant Diane Carter declared, snatching the blue device from 17-year-old Jasmine's grip. This looks suspicious. You're not bringing contraband on my aircraft. Delta Flight 52 idled at Atlanta's departure gate. Everyone is already strapped in for the journey west to Seattle. Jasmine's brown eyes glistened as her chest tightened, each breath growing shallower than the last. My prescription, Jasmine managed between gasps, reaching toward her confiscated medication. Without it, I can't manage my condition. Diane examined the inhaler theatrically. Sure, and next you'll claim these are prescription painkillers, she announced loud enough for business class to hear. Several passengers pulled phones from their pockets. Jasmine's medical alert tag glinted under fluorescent light as she desperately stretched toward her lifeline. Have you ever seen someone's well-being threatened while bystanders chose to film rather than intervene? Diane Carter boasted 14 years with Delta. She valued order above compassion, rules above reason, safety protocols above passenger welfare. But watching the teenager in the 19th century, something darker motivated her decisions. Jasmine Williams didn't match Diane's mental image of premium cabin travelers. Her textured curls framed her face naturally. Her outfit came from secondhand shops rather than luxury boutiques. When Jasmine initially attempted to sit in 3B, Diane immediately questioned her ticket's validity. Where'd you acquire this device? Diane waved the inhaler aggressively. Some street corner? The insult penetrated recycled cabin air. Jasmine's respirations accelerated dangerously. She indicated her medical identification with trembling hands. Costume jewelry, Diane dismissed without examination. I recognize these tricks. Row 12 passenger Rachel Kim activated her TikTok live stream. You guys are witnessing this discrimination on Delta 552 right now. Her camera documented every accusation, every gesture, every moment of Jasmine's public humiliation. Jasmine attempted an explanation through increasingly compromised breathing. My name's Jasmine Williams. I'm 17 years old, severe asthma diagnosis. Flying solo to my grandfather's memorial in Seattle. Save the performance, Diane snapped, checking her timepiece. 8 minutes until the departure window closes. Gate personnel prepared final boarding procedures. Jasmine's smartphone vibrated persistently. Caller identification displayed father, but oxygen deprivation prevented her from answering. Her personal bag overhead contained Stanford acceptance documents and technology inconsistent with Diane's assumptions. Either this device goes in the waste disposal, Diane projected across nearby rows, or you depart my aircraft. The threat rippled through passengers. Coach section craned necks, investigating commotion. Business class fell silent, except for recording devices capturing evidence. Jasmine's chest movements quickened. Perspiration formed despite a comfortable cabin temperature. Impending respiratory crisis symptoms were unmistakable to anyone medically trained. But Diane perceived only preconceived expectations. You're unaware of who you're challenging, Jasmine whispered, words barely escaping constricted airways. Diane laughed without warmth. Right, your people will summon attorneys. The racist implication registered clearly with listening passengers. Rachel's livestream already attracted 800 viewers initially. Comments flooded screens, overwhelmingly condemning witness behavior. Jasmine's boarding document lay wrinkled in her lap. Close inspection would reveal anomalies. The pass indicated 3B business class, yet Jasmine occupied 19C coach. How had relocation occurred? Captain announced over the speakers. Flight crew, departure preparation commencing. We're third in the pushback sequence. Minutes evaporated. Jasmine's medical state deteriorated rapidly. Her wheezing became audible 4 rows distant. The elderly gentleman in 17A, who'd identified as retired physician Dr. Williams during boarding, started rising. Remain seated, sir, Diane commanded. Crew jurisdiction exclusively. Jasmine's phone continued buzzing. Missed calls accumulated, identical contact repeatedly. Her father was attempting to connect, but chest burning consumed her focus. Diane elevated the inhaler dramatically. I don't recognize what operation you're conducting, but this airline maintains standards. Jasmine's reply vanished into coughing spasms, leaving her gasping. Her lips displayed faint blue discoloration, which medical professionals recognize as a critical warning. Aircraft doors stayed open, but Diane's ultimatum hung threateningly. Other attendants observed nervously from stations, visibly uncomfortable yet unwilling to challenge a senior colleague's authority. Rachel's stream reached 15,000 viewers. Delta discrimination began trending. Major media outlets are monitoring the developing story, but Diane remained oblivious to the mounting crisis surrounding her actions. Jasmine fumbled for her device as another breathing difficulty wave struck. Her father's contact appeared again. This call she knew required answering. Voicemail again. Jasmine's smartphone slipped from shaking fingers as coughing overtook her small body. Attention-seeking, Diane muttered audibly to business passengers. Several shifted uncomfortably, phones openly documenting the confrontation. Supervisor Lisa Park boarded at the gate level. Her radio crackled with urgent transmissions she couldn't decipher through cabin noise. Something regarding priority traveler and executive notification, but the words are fragmented. What's occurring? Lisa asked Diane quietly, hoping for containment. Passenger 19C attempting narcotic boarding, Diane explained confidently. Claims inhaler legitimacy, but observe her behavior. Textbook drug-seeking patterns. Lisa glanced at Jasmine, now hunched forward, struggling for oxygen. The teenager's condition was visibly worsening, yet Diane's certainty remained unshaken. Verified her medical identification? Lisa inquired. Fake jewelry, fabricated asthma story, Diane dismissed. 14 years of experience. I recognize deception. Meanwhile, Rachel's broadcast exploded. 70,000 viewers are watching in real time. Comments overwhelmed screens faster than reading is possible. Let Jasmine Breathe gained momentum across platforms. Dr. Williams couldn't maintain silence. Excuse me, that young woman exhibits severe respiratory distress symptoms. She requires immediate medical intervention. Sir, stay seated, Diane ordered. Crew safety matters exclusively. This constitutes a medical emergency, Dr. Williams insisted, voice carrying 4 decades of medical authority. Licensed physician here, and that girl needs her medication immediately. Diane's expression hardened. Situation spiraling beyond control, but retreating now meant admitting error. Corporate policy establishes that crew safety supersedes passenger comfort. The phrase chilled passengers. Passenger comfort. Jasmine fought for breath, chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow movements that anyone recognized as abnormal. 2 security officers appeared at the aircraft entrance. Diane had summoned them during the initial confrontation, requesting passenger removal for suspected drug possession. They approached Jasmine's row professionally. Accompany us, please, the lead officer stated firmly. Jasmine attempted speech but only wheezed. Her phone buzzed again. Same caller. Father, this time more urgent, more insistent. She's non-compliant, Diane informed officers. The claimed inhaler was medication, became aggressive when confiscated. Dr. Williams stood despite Diane's command. Officers, I'm a physician. This passenger experiences a severe asthma attack. Not non-compliance. Medical distress. Officers looked between Diane and the doctor, uncertainty flickering. Jasmine's condition is impossible to ignore now. Breathing audibly labored, sweat-soaking clothing. Without a prescription bottle, we support crew assessment, the lead officer explained apologetically. Ma'am, without proper medication documentation, Jasmine's phone rang again. Sound pierced oxygen-starved consciousness like an alarm. Her father's image appeared and something in her expression transformed. Through gasping breaths, she pressed answer. Father, she whispered, barely audible. Rachel's stream captured the moment. 300,000 viewers across platforms. News networks are picking up the story. Delta discrimination is trending nationally. The cabin was completely silent except for Jasmine's labored breathing and quiet phone conversation. Passengers had strained hearing, but Jasmine's voice was too weak to carry. Diane tapped her foot impatiently. Flight is now 18 minutes delayed. Ground crew is growing agitated. Aircraft needed pushback to maintain the schedule. We lack all day, Diane announced. Either proper documentation or aircraft departure. Lisa Santos shifted nervously. Something felt wrong, but Diane was a senior attendant. Corporate hierarchy demanded supporting colleagues' decisions despite doubts. Jasmine's phone conversation continued in hushed, desperate tones. Surrounding passengers caught fragments. They're refusing, and please help, and what sounded like Flight 552, Dr. Williams tried once more. I can authenticate this legitimate medical device. I've examined thousands of inhalers professionally. This clearly, Sir, you're unauthorized to make that determination aboard this aircraft, Diane interrupted. Only documented medications permitted. Security officers stood awkwardly. Jasmine's condition was deteriorating visibly, but protocol demanded following crew guidance. Without official medical documentation, they treated the situation as Diane described. Jasmine's breathing is increasingly shallow. Blue discoloration around the lips is now visible surrounding Rose. Dr. Williams's medical training screened intervention, but security agents blocked passage. This is madness, someone whispered from business class. Can't you see she's ill? Diane whirled. Anyone interfering with crew operations faces aircraft removal. Threat silenced murmurs, but phones continued recording. Livestream audience reached massive proportions. Major networks are being monitored in real time. Jasmine's conversation grew urgent. Though words were barely audible, the tone conveyed desperation mixed with something else. Hope perhaps, or something more powerful. The aircraft door remained open, but time was vanishing. Diane's ultimatum hung sword-like. Jasmine faced a choice. Leave the aircraft without life-saving medication or somehow convince everyone she wasn't the drug-seeking teenager Diane believed. Her phone buzzed, final incoming call. Same caller, father. This time Jasmine's trembling finger moved decisively toward the answer button. Whatever approach, this call would change everything. Jasmine's finger trembled, accepting the call. Cabin noise faded as she brought the phone to her ear. Breathing still labored, but eyes suddenly focused with determination. Father, she gasped, voice whisper yet carrying silent aircraft. They're denying my inhaler. Response was immediate and clear, though muffled. Jasmine's expression shifted from desperation toward something resembling relief. She looked at Diane, then security, then the phone. He wants to speak with you, Jasmine said, extending the phone toward Diane. Speaker mode? Diane rolled her eyes dramatically. I'm not conversing with your activate speaker, Jasmine. The voice commanded calm. Authoritative, unmistakably accustomed to obedience. Even through a tiny speaker, it commanded attention. Jasmine's shaking finger found the speaker button. Voice-filled cabin, clear and professional. This is Captain David Williams, Delta Airlines employee number 5827, Chief Flight Operations Director. Whom am I addressing? Color drained from Diane's face like witnessing an apparition. The name meant nothing to passengers, but every Delta employee knew exactly who Captain David Williams was. He oversaw more than 5,000 pilots, reporting directly to the CEO. Sir, this is Diane Carter, flight attendant. Employee identification 53,248, she stammered, earlier confidence evaporating. There appears to be some misunderstanding. Diane Carter, Captain Williams's voice carried clearly. You're currently denying my daughter access to prescribed asthma medication. Correct? Word daughter impacted the cabin physically. Passengers looked between Jasmine and the phone with growing understanding. Diane's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, fish gasping for air. Jasmine managed a small smile despite breathing difficulties. First smile since boarding the aircraft. Sir, I was following standard protocol for unverified medications. Diane attempted to explain, voice lacking conviction. Diane, no protocol exists denying life-saving medication to minors. Captain Williams replied, tone remaining dangerously calm. You're currently violating federal regulations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Delta's medical accommodation policies, and basic human decency. Security officers exchanged glances. The situation just became exponentially complicated. No longer suspected drug possession case. Witnessing potential corporate negligence in real time. Lisa Park stepped forward, face pale. She recognized the gravity of unfolding events. Captain Williams wasn't just any pilot. One of the most powerful figures airline industry. Captain Williams, sir, this is Lisa Park, flight supervisor. We can resolve this immediately. Medication was returned to your daughter right away. Too late for immediate resolution, Lisa, Captain Williams replied. This incident was broadcast live to over 500,000 viewers. Damage done. Rachel's live stream indeed exploded beyond expectations. 900,000 viewers across platforms. Justice for Jasmine is trending worldwide. Diane's hands shook, still holding Jasmine's inhaler. A small plastic device, seeming so insignificant now, felt 1,000 pounds weight. She looked around the cabin, seeing first-time phones recording every move, disgusted passenger faces, growing realization of a catastrophic mistake. Jasmine, are you okay? Captain Williams's voice softened, addressing daughter. I need my inhaler, Dad, Jasmine wheezed, breathing still severely compromised. Diane Carter, Captain Williams's voice returned professional tone. Return my daughter's medication immediately, then remain exactly where you are. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Confusion rippled through the cabin. Passengers looked at each other, questioning. How could Jasmine's father arrive 15 minutes early if calling elsewhere? Diane numbly handed the inhaler back to Jasmine, who immediately used it. Relief was visible as breathing began improving, though the attack had taken a significant toll. Sir, Diane tried once more. How can you arrive 15 minutes early? Are you calling from headquarters? For the first time, amusement in Captain Williams's voice. Diane, I'm calling from Terminal 3, Gate 18. Flight 889 from Chicago landed 10 minutes ago. I was commuting home when I received Jasmine's emergency text. Revelation sent another shockwave through the cabin. Jasmine's father wasn't calling across country. He was literally same airport, walking toward their gate this moment. Dr. Williams, watching the entire exchange with growing satisfaction, finally spoke. Young woman, how are you feeling now? Jasmine took another puff before responding. Better. Thank you for attempting to help. Voice stronger now, though still shaky from the ordeal. Jasmine, Captain Williams's voice continued on the phone. I need you to stay calm and use your inhaler as needed. Diane Carter, you are relieved of duty effective immediately. Lisa Park, you will ensure my daughter receives appropriate medical attention and a formal apology from Delta Airlines. Diane's career ended in real time, broadcast to nearly 1 million viewers. 14 years of service erased by own prejudice and poor judgment. Sir, please, Diane pleaded. I was just maintaining safety protocols. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask, Captain Williams interrupted. You made assumptions based on my daughter's appearance, ignored her medical identification, dismissed a licensed physician's assessment, and created a hostile environment that could have killed her. Cabin is so quiet that Jasmine's improved but still labored breathing is audible to everyone. Passengers who'd been recording now watched a mixture of satisfaction and horror, witnessing someone's career destruction in real time. Jasmine, I'm at the jet bridge now, Captain Williams announced. I'll be boarding in 45 seconds. The aircraft door, which had remained open throughout the confrontation, suddenly took on new significance. Everyone's eyes turned toward the entrance, waiting arrival of the man who'd just turned their flight into a viral sensation and corporate crisis. Diane Carter stood frozen in the aisle, still wearing wings and uniform, but no longer possessing the authority they represented. Her 14-year career was over, ended by 15 minutes of discrimination that would be replayed millions of times across social media. Jasmine took another breath from the inhaler, color beginning to return to normal. She looked at the phone in her hand, then at Diane, then toward the aircraft door where her father would soon appear. Dad, she said into the phone. Thank you. Always, baby girl, came the reply. Now let's show these people what accountability looks like. Footsteps on the jet bridge are clearly audible. Captain David Williams was about to board Flight 552, and nothing would ever be the same. Footsteps stopped at the aircraft door. Captain David Williams appeared full Delta uniform, his presence immediately commanding the attention of every person aboard. At 6'4", with 28 years of aviation authority radiating from every gesture, he filled the doorway like a force of nature. Cabin fell into absolute silence, except steady hum aircraft's electrical systems. Even Jasmine's breathing, though much improved, seemed loud, hushed atmosphere. Captain Williams's eyes swept the cabin, taking scene methodically. Recording phones, uncomfortable passengers, security officers still standing awkwardly in the aisle, and finally his daughter in seat 19C, still pale but breathing normally with an inhaler clutched in her hands. Jasmine, he said softly, voice carrying clearly in silence. How do you feel? Much better now, Dad, she replied, voice stronger than it had been 30 minutes. Captain Williams nodded, then turned his attention to Diane Carter. She stood frozen in the aisle, face ashen, her 14 years of service about to be scrutinized by one of the most powerful men in commercial aviation. Diane Carter, employee identification 53248, Captain Williams began, voice returning professional tone. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done? Diane's mouth moved soundlessly moment before finding voice. Sir, I was following protocols for passenger safety. Stop. Captain Williams's command cut through excuses like a blade. Let me explain what you've actually done using facts rather than justifications. He pulled out his phone, not making a call, but referencing data he'd pulled during the walk to the gate. Delta Airlines' annual revenue is $62.7 billion. The average settlement for discrimination lawsuits in the airline industry is $2.6 million. Your annual salary is $67,000. Numbers landed with mathematical precision. You have potentially cost this company more than your lifetime earnings in 15 minutes. Passengers listened with rapt attention. Many were still recording, knowing they were witnessing something unprecedented in commercial aviation. But financial exposure is secondary, Captain Williams continued. You violated Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and Delta's own medical accommodation policies. You created a hostile environment for a minor passenger based on racial profiling, ignored medical documentation, and dismissed the professional opinion of a licensed physician. Dr. Williams nodded approvingly from his seat. Everything Captain Williams said was legally accurate and devastating. Sir, Lisa Park interjected nervously. We can resolve this situation with appropriate apologies and accommodations. Captain Williams turned his attention to the flight supervisor. Lisa, this incident has been broadcast live to over 1 million viewers. Trending on every major social platform. CNN, MSNBC, and ABC have already picked up the story. There is no containing this situation. As if summoned by words, his phone buzzed incoming call. The display showed CEO Edward Mason. Captain Williams declined the call and continued addressing the cabin. Diane, you have created what we call in corporate terms a career-limiting event, he said, tone remaining eerily calm. You have two choices, and you have 45 seconds to decide. Ultimatum hung in the air like smoke. Every phone in the cabin is recording this moment of corporate justice unfolding in real time. Choice 1, immediate resignation with neutral reference. You leave this aircraft right now, turning your wings and badge, and never work for Delta Airlines again. But you might find employment with another carrier eventually. Diane's breathing had become almost as labored as Jasmine's had been earlier, but for entirely different reasons. Choice 2, termination for cause, permanent blacklist from all major airlines, personal liability for any discrimination lawsuit damages, and federal civil rights violation on employment record. Captain Williams paused. And criminal charges for endangering the welfare of a minor. Criminal charges sent murmurs through the cabin. Passengers had been entertained by corporate drama, but mentioning criminal liability raised the stakes considerably. You now have 20 seconds to decide, Captain Williams announced, checking his watch with military precision. Diane looked around the cabin desperately, as if seeking support from somewhere. Passengers stared back with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Security officers maintained professional neutrality, but their body language suggested wanting to distance themselves from the entire situation. Diane began, voice cracking. 10 seconds. Jasmine watched the woman who had humiliated her now facing career destruction. Despite everything Diane had put her through, Jasmine felt an unexpected sympathy pang. But she said nothing, understanding this moment was about more than personal revenge. Time's up, Captain Williams announced. What's your decision, Diane? I resign, Diane whispered, words barely audible. Louder, for the record, and for passengers who witnessed your behavior. I resign from Delta Airlines, effective immediately, Diane said, voice carrying through the cabin. Captain Williams nodded curtly, badge and wings. With trembling hands, Diane unpinned the flight attendant wings and removed the employee badge. She handed them to Captain Williams, who pocketed them without ceremony. Security will escort you off this aircraft, he announced. You are no longer authorized to be aboard any Delta Airlines property. Security officers who had initially been called to remove Jasmine now found themselves escorting Diane Carter toward the aircraft door. Irony wasn't lost on anyone present. As Diane reached the door, Captain Williams called out the final instruction. Diane, before you leave the Delta property, you will issue a public apology to my daughter. Not for your career, not for your job, but because a 17-year-old girl deserved basic human dignity and medical care. Diane turned back, face streaked with tears. Jasmine, I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I hope you can forgive me. Jasmine looked at her father, then back at Diane. I forgive you, she said quietly, but I hope you learn from this. Diane nodded and disappeared through the aircraft door. Her 14-year career ended in 15 minutes of prejudice and poor judgment. Captain Williams's phone buzzed again. CEO Edward Mason is calling for the fourth time. This time Captain Williams answered. "Edward, I'm handling the situation," he said, voice carrying through the cabin. "Full corporate backing is requested and expected." The conversation was brief and clearly supportive. When Captain Williams hung up, he addressed the entire cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, Delta Airlines formally apologizes for the treatment my daughter received today. This incident represents failure of our training, our policies, and our values. It will not happen again." Spontaneous applause that erupted surprised everyone, including Captain Williams. Passengers were applauding not just an apology, but a demonstration of swift, decisive accountability they had just witnessed. "Jasmine," Captain Williams said, turning to his daughter, "your seat assignment was actually 3B in business class. Let's get you moved to where you belong." As Jasmine gathered her belongings, Dr. Williams approached. "Captain Williams, your daughter handled herself with remarkable grace under impossible circumstances. You should be proud." "I am," Captain Williams replied, helping Jasmine with her carry-on bag. "But I'm also angry that she had to." Livestream had now reached 1.4 million viewers. Airline justice for Jasmine is trending globally. Major news outlets are preparing full coverage of the incident. Diane Carter's career destruction had become a case study in corporate accountability and the power of social media. Jasmine took her father's arm as they walked toward business class. Cabin still buzzing with excitement over what they had witnessed. History had been made on Flight 552 and everyone present knew they had been part of something unprecedented. 2 hours later, Flight 52 was finally airborne. Jasmine sat in seat 3B, where she had originally been assigned, with her father beside her in the captain's commute seat that Delta had quickly arranged. Her breathing is completely normal now, but the inhaler remained within easy reach. The cabin atmosphere had transformed completely. Passengers who had initially been uncomfortable witnesses were now approaching Jasmine with words of support. Flight attendant Michael Ross, who had replaced Diane, stopped by their seats every few minutes, checking Jasmine's condition. "Jasmine, I want you to know that what happened today was completely against everything Delta stands for," Michael said during one visit. "I've been with the company for 9 years, and I've never seen anything like Diane's behavior." Jasmine smiled genuinely, first time since boarding. "Thank you, that means a lot." Captain Williams had spent most flight on the phone, coordinating with Delta's corporate headquarters. The airline is moving with unprecedented speed to address the situation and prevent similar incidents. "Jasmine, listen to this," he said, hanging up from yet another call. "Delta is implementing immediate policy changes based on what happened to you today." He pulled out a tablet and showed her the emergency corporate bulletin already being distributed to all Delta employees worldwide. Effective immediately, all flight attendants must complete 45 hours of medical device recognition training within 30 days. Any crew member who denies access to properly identified medical devices faces immediate termination. Jasmine read over the policy changes with growing amazement. Her ordeal is already creating systemic change throughout the airline industry. "There's more," Captain Williams continued. "Delta is launching medical alert application integration with passenger profiles. When passengers check in, they can register medical devices and conditions. Information is immediately available to all crew members." The technology solution addressed the exact kind of ignorance and assumptions that had led to Jasmine's humiliation. No future passenger would endure what she experienced. "Dad, this is incredible," Jasmine said, scrolling through policy updates. "But what about other airlines?" "Already happening," Captain Williams replied with satisfaction. American, United, and JetBlue have all contacted Delta requesting copies of these new policies. "Your 15 minutes of hell are going to protect thousands of passengers." Dr. Williams, who had been following developments from a seat, approached during meal service. "Jasmine, I want you to know that I've contacted the American Medical Association about what happened today. We're developing standardized medical identification protocols for all commercial aviation. Ripple effects expanding beyond Delta, beyond commercial aviation into broader healthcare and civil rights communities." Jasmine's story is becoming a catalyst for change across multiple industries. Rachel Kim, the passenger who had live-streamed the entire incident, stopped by their seats near the end flight. "Jasmine, my video has been viewed over 18 million times. Comments are incredible. People sharing their own discrimination stories, talking about change, demanding accountability. What happened to Diane? Jasmine asked quietly. Last I heard, she was trying to get a job at a retail store in the suburbs, Rachel replied. No airline will touch her. The video first thing that appears when you search her name. Jasmine felt a complex mix of emotions about Diane's fate. Justice had been served, but destroying someone's livelihood still felt heavy. Jasmine, her father said, sensing conflicted feelings. What happened to Diane was a consequence of her choices, not your actions. You handled yourself with more grace than most adults would have. As Flight 52 began descent into Seattle, Jasmine reflected on how completely her life had changed in a single day. She was no longer just a teenager flying to her grandfather's memorial. She had become the face of the movement, catalyst for industry-wide reform, and symbol of quiet strength in the face of injustice. 6 months after Flight 552, Jasmine Williams stood before a congressional subcommittee on transportation and civil rights, testifying about discrimination in commercial aviation. Stanford freshmen had become one of the most recognizable voices in the fight for passenger rights. Changes implemented after my experience have reduced medical discrimination complaints by 81% across Delta Airlines, Jasmine told assembled congresspeople. But real victory isn't in numbers. It's in letters I receive from parents whose children no longer fear flying with their medical devices. The medical alert application that Delta developed had been adopted by 15 major airlines. Diane Carter's career destruction had become a case study in corporate accountability taught in business schools nationwide. Captain David Williams had been promoted to Executive Vice President of Inclusive Operations, overseeing similar reforms across the entire airline industry. Jasmine's story had transcended aviation. Her calm response to discrimination, her father's decisive action, and the power of social media to create immediate accountability had inspired changes in hospitals, schools, and retail establishments across the country. I learned something important that day, Jasmine continued in testimony. Individual courage can transform entire industries, but only when people are willing to document injustice and demand change. Viral video of Flight 552 had been viewed over 60 million times across all platforms. It was studied in law schools, played at diversity training seminars, and referenced in federal discrimination cases. Jasmine's 15 minutes of humiliation had created a lasting legacy of reform. Dr. Williams, now serving on a federal advisory panel for medical accommodation policies, often referenced Jasmine's case and recommendations. Standardized medical identification protocols developed after her incident have been adopted by the Transportation Security Administration and implemented at airports nationwide. Jasmine's Stanford studies now focus on aerospace engineering with a specialization in passenger safety systems. Her senior thesis project involved developing biometric monitoring systems that could automatically alert flight crews to passenger medical distress. What happened on Flight 552 taught me that power should protect vulnerable, not exploit them, Jasmine concluded in congressional testimony. When we witness injustice, we have a choice: document it or become complicit in it. These real-life stories remind us that one person's courage can create systemic change. Jasmine's touching story proves that diverse stories matter, that young voices can transform industries, and that quiet strength often achieves more than loud anger. Have you witnessed discrimination that needed documenting? Share your experiences in the comments below. Stories, as Jasmine shows us, that individual actions can create lasting change. Hit subscribe to see more life stories of people fighting injustice with intelligence and courage. Share this video, spreading awareness about the power of accountability in creating social change. From the series, Inspirational Journeys,